Great Scott, it's November 12th. You know what that means? It's time to rank all of the Back to the Future films. In order, here we go. Number 3 is Back to the Future Part 2. While I'm a big fan of all 3 Back to the Future movies, I think that Part 2 is probably the weakest of the 3. The future element of this movie is probably the weakest section of the film. The special effects don't quite hold up. And you can really tell that this story was the punchline of a joke, because the first one ended on a joke. There weren't supposed to be any sequel, and they made part 2 because the first one made a lot of money and people loved it. They tried to rescue Marty's kids by going to the future, but it doesn't really matter because it hasn't happened yet. But I do like the part where they go back to this alternate reality in 1985, where Biff is the ruler of Hill Valley, just because I like the dark part of the film. And I also think that Marty and the Doc still have great chemistry. It's great seeing them back, and I do think that having George McFly here and Jennifer kind of feel out of place, just because they're not played by the same actors and you can really tell. I love them going back to 1955 as well, because they have to go get the sports almanac from young Biff. I love that they also make Biff the main bad guy here, and it's because of Marty's mistake that Biff becomes this really dangerous villain. It's a really good, entertaining movie. It's a bit convoluted. I think there's a little bit too much going on, but overall I am really satisfied watching part 2 of Back to the Future. The music is still great. It still gets me my energy going, and the cliffhanger of part 2 is amazing. And even though it's the weakest of the 3, I really enjoy it. But other than that, I think that part 2 is a lot of fun, and it continues the series in a good and interesting direction. Number 2 is Back to the Future Part 3. I think that Back to the Future Part 3 is a much better movie than Part 2. It has a more focused plot, and I like the Western setting. I think that the Western setting works well for this series. And I think that the chemistry between Doc and Marty is by far the best part of this entire trilogy, and it's still present in part 3. There's a bit more humor in part 3 than part 2. I think that it's a more fun movie to watch. There's the less dark elements, and I like that they gave Doc Brown a love interest. It's fun seeing him in love, and I think that if you watch part 3 more from Doc's point of view, it works a lot better. I think that this movie is focused on Doc Brown, and Marty is sort of the sidekick of this adventure, and I like this movie a lot. I think that it's well done. The ending is a bit cheesy. It's a bit a little too perfect for me, but I still enjoy it overall. And yeah, it follows some of the same tropes of part 1 and part 2. There's a lot of familiar things in this movie, but overall I think that part 3 is a satisfying conclusion to the Back to the Future trilogy. It's fun, it's really exciting, and of course it's just a really good time. I enjoy Back to the Future part 3 a lot. Number 1, of course, if you haven't guessed it yet, it's Back to the Future Part 1. It would be really difficult to find a Back to the Future fan that thinks that Part 1 is the weakest of the 3, because it's clearly the best one out of the 3 movies. Part 1 is such a great movie. It's so iconic at this point. The music, the score by Alan Silvestri is just phenomenal. It's one of my favorite scores. Doc Brown and Marty McFly here are just really fantastic. I love these characters so much. They're some of my favorite characters in all pop culture, and the DeLorean is so awesome. I love the way it's introduced. I love the scene in the Twin Spines Mall where Doc Brown gets shot by the Libyans, and then Marty is sent back to the past in 1955, where he meets his parents, Lorraine and George McFly. It's really great because sometimes you wonder, like, would you like your own parents if you went back in time when they were in high school? And then Marty McFly gets to spend a week with his parents, with his younger parents in high school. So it's a really well done film. It's super entertaining, and I love the 1955 setting. I think it's really just super well realized on screen, and Robert Zemeckis was perfect to direct this movie. The script, I think, could have been a little better because you're making a time travel film. You're gonna get into some problems, like you're gonna get into some inconsistencies, and it happens. The biggest one for me in this movie, the biggest thing that doesn't make sense is that Lorraine and George McFly, they don't remember Marty. They don't remember meeting him in the 1955 school dance. And like when he's grown up, when he returns to the present in 1985, they don't even remember that it was their son that made them fall in love. So that's the biggest flaw of the first Back to the Future. You sort of forget about it because the movie is so great and you're having such a good time, and the ending is incredible. The ending scene is so great when Doc sends Marty back in time. The music, you're just on the edge of your seat during this entire scene. Just a great moment. It's one of the best scenes in cinema history, in my opinion. And like, this scene is so good. It's in all three Back to the Future films. I love this series. I think that all three movies are good. I know like some people think that the best one is 1, and like 2 and 3 aren't really all that entertaining, but I think that the entire trilogy is good, and I would really enjoy seeing like a Back to the Future Part 4. I know that they can't really make one until Robert Zemeckis passes away, and I bet you like the studio really wants to make another one. But yeah, I think that they could make another one. There's a lot of stuff they could do. There are a lot of other media in the Back to the Future franchise, like the game, which goes back into 1930s, and there's an animated TV series. There's a lot of stuff, extended stuff that we've had over the years, but we'll never like get Back to the Future Part 4, which would be interesting. It could be fun. So yeah, let me know what your Back to the Future rankings are down in the comments below. Please like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.